And welcome to Halacha on the Line, a weekly radio show dealing with practical halachas that affect you in daily life, with your host, educator and author, Rabbi Yair Hoffman.
Hello, welcome to Halacha on the Line, 620 on your AM dial. This is Rabbi Yair Hoffman, and we're on with Mr. Yaakov Muscat, who is a member of the synagogue of the shul that has been in the news. What has happened is there was some sort of a plan by the board. I think it was effective. They actually sold it to a developer, and the plan of the developer was to knock down the shul and to construct 6 floors of condominiums with a shul, with another building for the shul underneath. So we wanted to get a first-hand view of what's going on here. We're here with Mr. Yaakov Muscat. You've been a member for how long?
I've been there since I was born, for 40 years.
Wow. Okay, so tell me what's happening. Tell me when you first found out about the sale and what's involved, what they're claiming, what you're claiming.
The thing is that I've been there for 40 years. I was involved in all ceremonial things in the shul, in terms of reading the Torah, in terms of davening for the Amud. I was a chazan. I was Baal Koreh for many, many years over there. I was involved in everything. It was like a second home to me, in essence, and I wasn't informed at all. I found out by chance. Somebody happened to call me up and tell me that this is what's happening, and I had absolutely no idea. And it's very frustrating that you were a part of something for such a long time, and nobody has the courtesy to inform you. Nobody called me to a board meeting. Nobody called me to anything, basically.
Are you a member of the board?
I have absolutely no idea. I'm not a member of the board, but I was part of the show for many years. I did go to some meetings, and nobody had any courtesy to call me or involve me at all.
Okay, so this was the entire board. This was some members of the board. Who orchestrated this?
I believe it was some members of the board, from what I was told. I'm not in over there to know exactly, but from what I do know, there were some members, maybe 6, that got together and decided to sell the shul without telling anybody.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And the shul was actually sold.
That's my understanding.
Wow. And now I understand there was also a lawsuit against the state attorney general. Were you part of that lawsuit, or?
No, not at all. I was not part of the lawsuit. I do understand that there is a lawsuit because the attorney general's office didn't investigate this at all and just allowed the sale to take place.
And it wasn't on the public. It wasn't on the public market for sale. It was just privately sold to one of the board members' acquaintances or friends, as I understand it.
Exactly.
And it was sold for $3.1 million.
Correct. That's my understanding.
And the value of the shul seems to be higher than that, as I understand it.
I would think so. Yes, it's real estate in Borough Park, which is a very, very expensive real estate, and the land is quite a bit. So I would assume that it should be worth much more.
Okay, and where does the shul? It's on 12th Avenue and 41st?
12th Avenue and 41st Street, built in the 1800s, over 100 years old. I don't even understand why it's not a landmark, because it should be. Rabbi bought the shul from Beth El, that originally built it around 1890. In 1914, Rabbi bought it for $20,000 at that time. I assume $20,000 at that time is worth like $1 million today. And it stood since then, and it was a functioning shul until now.
Wow. Now, one of the halachic requirements of a shul, ideally, is that it should be the tallest building around. Is it a tall building?
It is a tall building, yes. I don't know if it's the tallest. There may be churches that are taller, but for a shul, it's a very tall building, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, and I understand the new plan that they wanted to implement was to put the shul on the bottom floor.
Right, it's basically making a shul into a shtivel, which is like a house, which serves as a place of prayer. I don't understand how that compares to a shul, which is tall, big, and a beautiful piece of art, actually, that people daven in. It's not the same
Well, there's
as
also a
a
halachic
room.
issue there of here it was the tallest building around, and then here it was the tallest building around, and now it's going to be on the bottom floor. Now also,
On the bottom floor, like a house,
right,
a room in a house.
right. Also, I had written a couple of articles about this situation, and I believe one of the board members that was involved in engineering the entire deal actually responded to me, and he said, no, you don't know what poor condition it is. How do you know? You're not an engineer. Now, let me ask you a question. Is it dangerous? Is the shape that the synagogue is in, is it one that could fall apart, that could cause damage to the people inside? What is your assessment of that?
The last time I was there was 2 years ago, and there was absolutely no danger whatsoever. They did a malach makata on my parents, and I can tell you I went upstairs, I went downstairs, and nothing was falling apart. The walls are not falling apart. They're not caving in, and there's absolutely no danger in terms of going into that shul. And if somebody says there is, I don't know, something must be wrong with their mind, because there really is nothing.
Right, and
It could
also
be
if
that,
there was,
it needs repairs, but any place that's over 100 years old needs repairs. That's normal.
Right, and also there are state agencies or city agencies that they stop dangerous things. There's laws here. There's not you can't just make these things up. Okay, I wanted to go over some of the halachic aspects of what's involved here, because this is Halacha on the Line every Tuesday, 7 p.m. at 6:20 on your AM dial. So what's the source for the prohibition of destroying a synagogue is actually found in Sefer Dvarim, in the book of Deuteronomy. It's in chapter 12, verses 2 to 4. Basically, it says, Aved tavedun es kol makomos asher avdu shama goyim, venitatztem es misbechoisam, v'shibartem es matzevoisam, and then it says, Lo sasun kein l'Hashem Elokechem. And those 5 words, Lo sasun kein l'Hashem Elokechem, is the source that you are not allowed to take down a shul, and most poskim hold that this is a biblical prohibition. The Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvot says that from these psukim it says, "Ume'aved bate avodas hakel yisale." Whoever does this to buildings where you serve Hashem, or Sfarim, this is also the source of the prohibition for shemus. It's a violation of this Torah prohibition, according to the Rambam in his Sefer Mitzvos. It's Losase, number 65. So that's a very important thing. Here you have a synagogue that is basically violating what seems to be an Isser Deoraisa, a Torah prohibition. This is also brought down in the Ramah, in Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Kuf Nun Beis Aleph. And, the Mishnah Berurah also learns this way as well. So this is a very, very serious issue. Now, I do want to mention, though, that there is an opinion of the Prima Godim that perhaps this only applied to the temple itself, the biblical prohibition, and knocking down a synagogue for purposes other than, for the needs of the shul is only a rabbinic prohibition. That's the Prima Godim. You can find that opinion brought down in the Eshel Avram in Siman Kuf Nun Beis, and it's Sif Katan Vav. So the Prima Godim, now, by the way, he's not sure. He says it's a suffix. So it's not even for sure that the Prima Godim holds that it's Derabbanan. It could be it's Deoraisa, even according to that opinion as well. But regardless, we're talking about a prohibition unless it's for the purpose of sometimes you're allowed to do it when Jewish community moved away and there's no one there anymore. Another time is if it is dangerous, so then you're allowed to do it. But here, the purpose of it, it seems, is to make money off the condominiums, 6 floors of condominiums above that. Would you say that that's the reason why this deal was being made?
Absolutely.
Wow. So it's it's a horrific thing when people take advantage of a synagogue. I call them shul predators. This is not the first time this has happened. People try and take control of a shul, and they say, yeah, the shul will make money. There's no one supporting it, and then they take the property out from under the people, and it's just a horrific thing. I was thinking also, the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is in India. It was originally built as a mausoleum. There was a Muslim leader there in India who built it for his favorite wife, his beloved wife, a mausoleum. And it's one of the biggest buildings in the world, and certainly one of the most famous. Imagine if the government of India knocked down the Taj Mahal and put a Staples, a 6-floor Staples there, but they put on the bottom floor a mausoleum as well. There would be cries heard around the world. And, certainly, the Gemara in Megillah says that a shul, the shuls all over the world, they are a mikdash me'at. They are, a slight vestige, a slight glimpse of our holy Beis HaMikdash. And if the Taj Mahal, if the reaction of the Taj Mahal would be like that, and now, unfortunately, this is happening to a shul, and is anyone complaining about it? Is there? I would think that there should be protests all over. What's been the reaction?
Well, people who have down in the shul years ago are very, very upset, and there is a movement to stop this from happening, and it is going to the courts.
Okay, but are there like rabbis in the area that are, maybe they didn't hear about it? We got to be down the kashrus. Are you getting calls?
Let's be down the kashrus. I'm not sure about where that's holding in terms of the public and how they feel about it.
Okay, if this were to happen to a mosque, lahavdil, or if it were to happen to a church, that it would. Heads would roll if it would have happened to a mosque. And here,
absolutely,
yeah, wow. Okay, so moving along, there is a heter, there is a leniency to to do it if it's for the needs of the shul. Let's say the synagogue needs to be improved, so then you're allowed to knock down a wall. To make a better wall, that type of thing. But there are even questions of, let's say you want to make a little stender and you want to support it to the wall. Are you allowed to knock out part of that shul, the wall, to build something to attach it into the wall? And this is a very, very serious issue, and it's debated in the poskim whether such things are permitted. There's also another issue, and that issue is, there's a difference between a building where it was first built as a building, and then it was used as a synagogue, and one that was built originally as a synagogue itself. What's the difference? The difference lies in terms of whether you're allowed to have uses above the synagogue, above the shul. It's brought down in the poskim that if it's a use that is not so nice, such as sleeping or going to the bathroom, those type of things, so that's absolutely forbidden in a building where it was originally built as a shul. Now, what's the history of this building? Was it originally built as a shul, or was another building, another type of building that was later, it had a change of use?
No, this was originally built as a shul in the 1800s, and there was no question about that.
Wow. Okay, so now I'm told that what they're planning on doing is or what the plans were, was to put the synagogue portion of this bottom floor a little bit further out so that there's no building on top of that. That was supposedly to address this issue of being on top of a shul. But then again, it doesn't address the other issue of knocking down a shul for pretty much financial benefit. But did you hear anything about? Did you hear anything about that? About them planning on? Well, they didn't even tell you anything about the sale. Aren't there bylaws also that you got to inform the membership of things? You can't just
Yes, there are bylaws.
So these were
but
violated.
Obviously, this was done in some underhanded way in which nobody was informed. So I don't think that even people who are praying there today, I don't even think all of them know that about the sale or knew about the sale. Now they all do because it's in the news. But before that, I don't even think they knew about it.
Wow. He says there are questions here about Gezel and Geneva. If you're and the sale actually happened.
Yes.
Wow. Was anyone that was now? There's actually no problem suing the Attorney General because you don't need a Beis Din for this type of thing. But was there a Beis Din involved? Do you aware of any?
I'm not aware.
Okay, because I understand that there's accusations that, how do you go to a court of law? We settle our things with Beis Dins. Now, when it was done in such a underhanded way, they're claiming, by the way, that everyone knew that, there were signs and that the letters sent out.
That's a lie. Mm-hmm. Everybody did not know. I did not know.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so let's just repeat certain halacha conclusions here. There's definitely a prohibition of knocking down a shul or even any section of it, and whoever does so, according to the vast majority of poskim, is in violation of lo sasun kain laHashem Elokechem. Don't do this to Hashem, and that's inclusive of both Sfarim. You're not allowed to destroy Sfarim. You got to be careful with Hashem's name, and also shuls and also synagogues. Now, there is an opinion that, and that was the Prima Gadim, that the prohibition may be rabbinic. Now, if you're doing it to build and to fix the shul, so then it's permitted. But there are opinions also that say it's not for every purpose, that it's considered soser almanas l'saken, knocking down in order to fix. It's only, there's a very limited heter, and it's only when you immediately fix it right then and there that you can knock it, remove it, and immediately fix it. Also, when these things are done, you got to build the shul there first, because there's a concern that you're going to leave them without a place to daven, that shul. So, it's a very, very limited heter, this idea of livnos listor almanas l'saken. Also, when let's say you want to put a hole in the wall to fasten, some sort of a wooden stender. So it's best not to take anything away at all from the thickness of the wall, but just to add something afterwards. In other words, not to knock out any part of the wall because of this very, very severe prohibition of lo sasun kain laHashem Elokecha. That's a very, very important halachic point. And then there's the questions of, was this legitimate? Is this stealing? Is this a crime? And by the way, if this was done illegitimately, the people that did it, there may be issues, of whether they can serve as adim, as witnesses at a Jewish wedding. It's a very, very serious issue if it was done illegitimately. Anyway, I want to thank you very, very much for joining us here on the show. This is Halacha on the Line. Okay.
But I do want to thank you for having me on the show, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, and I just want to wish you much hatzlacha. This type of thing has to be stopped, has to be rooted out, because it can happen to anywhere, it can happen to anyone, and we just gotta watch out and make sure that we are treating our synagogues as the mikdash me'at that they really, really are. Wow, that was a very, very horrifying idea that someone could actually come and take over a shul and sell it to a developer, knock it down, try to knock it down, and build 6 floors of condominium housing to make money on it. That's a really, really horrifying thing. I just wanted to get into a little bit of the mitzvah of building a shul in the first place. Where does it come from? So there's a fascinating Rav Shlomo Kluger. It's in his Shnos Chaim, Chelik Beis, and it's the first tshuva there. And he concludes that there's no question that the building of a shul is certainly an obligation, and it's not like other obligations and such, but rather this is a very, very serious obligation. It comes from the mitzvah of creating a Zeichel HaMikdash, remembering the Holy Temple, and there is a debate brought down, interestingly enough, in the Stei Chemed. The Stei Chemed is a Sephardic Achron, and he discusses various opinions as to whether it's a Torah mitzvah to build a synagogue or a rabbinic mitzvah or just a very, very important, nice obligation. The Stei Chemed, this is in Beis HaKnesset. Maybe I should say Beit HaKnesset because he is Sephardic. So it's in volume 1. It's in Os Beis, and it's Mem Daled. So there, he cites a Zohar. The Zohar is found in Parshas Naso, page 186, Amud Aleph, and it's on the pasuk V'asu li mikdash. So on that, the Zohar writes, the whole Bei Kenishta de Alma, every synagogue of the world, is considered a mikdash. Mikdash Ikri. So that's a Zohar. So it's mashma from this Zohar that there is indeed a Torah mitzvah to establish a house so that the Shekhinah itself, can be there. But let's get back to the Rav Shlomo Kluger. So Rav Shlomo Kluger in that Shnos Chaim writes that it's unclear whether the mitzvah is to perform a Zeichel HaMikdash, to commemorate the Holy Temple, and it's like the other takonas, the other enactments that were made in order to commemorate, the temple. There's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu on Perek Lamed Yud Zayin, Tzion hi doresh ein law. So it's Tzion, it's Zion, and there's no one that is seeking for her. And from that pasuk, Shlomo Kluger says that it's the Gemara cited in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. So from that pasuk, Shlomo Kluger says that there is a mitzvah here to seek out and build the Beis HaKnesset as a Zeichel HaMikdash. Now, he does have another way of understanding it. Shlomo Kluger says maybe it's possible that the obligation to build the shul comes from the obligation of davening, because we know in the Gemara says in the Maseches Brachos, Daf Vav Amud Aleph, that a person's tefillah is not heard except for in a Beis HaKnesset, because the pasuk says Lishmoel Arina ve'ela tefillah. That's a pasuk in Malachim. So b'makom rina sham tehei tefillah. In that place where you build a Beis HaKnesset, that is where the tefillah should be. So it could be that that is the nature of the obligation, that it comes from the obligation of prayer. Now, Rav Shlomo Kluger goes on. It's a fascinating piece. He quotes the Gemara in Bava Basra, Daf Gimel Amud Beis, where Rav Chisda, this is our Gemara, says that it's forbidden aser listor Beis HaKnesses ad yivnu acher bimkomo. You got to build another one there first. And there's a debate in the Amoraim as to the reason. Some people say that there's a concern of Pshia, that at the end you're going to end up not building it.
And there are others that say that no, it's the obligation of tefillah. In the meantime, you won't have a place to pray. So the Gemara there concludes that the difference between them is when there is another place to daven. According to the first opinion, according to the opinion that says it's because it's tefillah, so then you can daven in that other place. But according to the opinion that says that we're concerned that he'll be lackadaisical, so then it's forbidden to do it until unless you build the new ones. So Shlomo Kluger wants to say that from this Gemara, you see clearly that the building of a Beis HaKnesses is certainly a mitzvah, and that you're concerned about being poshea, being lackadaisical in this mitzvah. Because if it wasn't a mitzvah, it was just, the needs of the rabbim, so then why was there no concern in regard to the other things? So Shlomo Kluger proves from this that only a shul which has a mitzvah in its building are we concerned about this. So you can make conclusions here that there's certainly a mitzvah to build a Beis HaKnesses, and on this there's no argument. And even the Gemara that tries to bring down a difference between the two opinions, both opinions agree that there certainly is a mitzvah to build a Beis HaKnesses. And certainly if there's a mitzvah to do so, to stop this is a terrible, terrible thing. There is also a very, very fascinating tshuva in Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank's Har Tzvi. It's an Orach Chaim, Chelik Aleph, Siman Pei Daled, and he writes that certainly the shuls that were built in Chutz La'aretz, they are going to come to Eretz Yisrael. They're going to be brought by Hashem to Eretz Yisrael. So basically what it says is, I'm reading now from his tshuva. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank writes as follows: Bate Knisios u Bate Midrashos heim bechlal Mikdash Me'at. They are part of Mikdash Me'at, and if so, Kishenizke Liros B'shuv Hashem Shvus Amo B'shavu Bonim Ligvulam, one will merit to see the ultimate redemption where his children will come back to their borders. V'anachnu po nivarch b'simcha. He writes he's in Eretz Yisrael. They're going to make brachos, and the Bate Knisios, the shuls, that shelo pasuk mehem kol Torah utfila, that the sound of Torah and Tefillah. And by the way, this shul has been active for well over 100 years. It's an unbelievable thing, the shul that we're talking about. Anyway, he says that they're certainly going to be brought, the building is going to be brought to Eretz Yisrael during the time of Mashiach. And now, Chas v'Shalom, if this plan goes through to fruition, what's happening is there's a shul where there's incredible kedusha there, where there was laning and davening non-stop for over 100 years. So Tzvi Pesach Frank writes that this shul, there's no question, it will definitely be brought to Eretz Yisrael. It's going to be lifted somehow on the wings of eagles. Somehow they're going to bring the shuls to Eretz Yisrael. And what's going to happen here? Now, if this plan goes through to fruition, the words of Tzvi Pesach Frank will be brought to naught, and this is a terrible, terrible thing. And he writes in Kitzer, Mashmavim osam zelo l'tovasenu mipnei choser bate knisios, but rather, why they're being brought to Eretz Yisrael? It's not because there's not enough shuls in Eretz Yisrael. Ela l'tovas bate knisios atzman. It's to the for the good of the shuls themselves. Shelo yu ashukim and miya kedusha, that they're not going to be distant from the kedusha. Shekvar zachu lios merkava lekedusha. They were already a chariot for holiness. Asher zeh kol shefa cheyusam v'kiyumam be'olam. This is what they were. Previously he discusses how every item in the world, whether it's a human being or whether it's an animal or a vegetable or a mineral, they all have a purpose, and the stones and everything that went into this building the shul, these shuls, that was their whole existence, and they served as a merkava, as a chariot for kedusha, for holiness, and it's just a horrific thing to consider that the shul is going to be knocked down. that is their plan, to have condominiums built over it. The prohibitions here are just mind-boggling in number, and there's not one rabbi, there's not one Rav or Posek that admits to standing behind such a project. It's mind-boggling that in Borough Park, the Yerushalayim of Brooklyn, that such a plan could have come up. As we said in the beginning of the show, what would happen if India decided to knock out the Taj Mahal and replace it with the Staples, or lahavdil, St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan, if they were to build a Toys R Us and put another cathedral on the bottom floor. It would the complaints, the ra'ash would be all over. And here, this is happening to one of the most venerable shuls, one of the oldest shuls in Brooklyn, and where is the outcry? So that's what we need to do here. And I just want to thank our guest for joining us. Remember, this is Halacha on the Line, 620 on your AM dial. Join us every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Thank you so much.